Hi, welcome to EdVantage. I'm Professor Marie Huntsinger, and today we're going to be talking about gender stratification both domestically and globally. Please make sure you subscribe. Gender stratification is the hierarchical distribution of social and economic resources according to gender. So typically we associate stratification with class and wealth and income, but resources and opportunities can also be stratified along the lines of gender. Gender apartheid is an extreme form of gender stratification where women are actually excluded from public life. An example is in Saudi Arabia, where there is a ban on women from participating in physical education in school and from watching sporting events in stadiums. Women were only allowed the privilege to drive in the year 2017, and today it's still required that if a woman wants to travel, she must have male permission or a male companion to accompany her, even if it's her son who's much younger. The women's movement from the 1960s and 70s has brought on tremendous social change that many young women take for granted today. Some of these changes are access to birth control. The Affordable Care Act has actually made birth control covered by most health insurance plans before you would need to pay out of pocket if your health insurance provider didn't cover it. Equal opportunity legislation. Title IX brought more equal opportunity for women in both education and sports. Laws against sexual harassment. We start to see more corporations and government institutions enabling policies that prohibit sexual discrimination and sexual harassment. Increased athletic opportunities for women. More women in political life. Public attitudes towards gender roles have recently changed. Young people today, especially in heterosexual relationships, value more egalitarian relationships between men and women and tend to share housework and care work more equally. We can see by this chart here that the number of stay-at-home dads has doubled between 1989 and 2012, which suggests that the status of stay-at-home dad has become less stigmatized in society, and also reflects the fact that women are entering the labor force at more numbers. Most households are dual income today. However, there still remains some barriers to equality, and we'll talk about that. In Congress in 2019, women make up about 50% of the population. However, only about a quarter of the seats in the United States Congress. The 2018 election has brought a lot of firsts. We see first Muslim women elected to Congress, first Native American women, and transgender, and we saw the first gay governor elected. As far as CEOs go, according to the Fortune 500 list, only 33 CEOs are currently women. So it's about 7%, so we have a lot of progress to make as far as female representation in leadership positions in corporations. Sociologists are also interested in inequality within the institutions of family and religion. As far as women in religious leadership positions, there are still many religions today that do not allow women in the top leadership positions, as this graph here shows. Most organized religions are patriarchal and often teach women's subservience to men. As far as the household goes, we are seeing men doing more care work for children and also doing more domestic work around the house. However, women still disproportionately do a larger share of housework and childcare. So we see from this graph here that men on average spend about 1 hour, 25 minutes a day on household activities, while women spend about 2 hours and 15 minutes a day. So this is what Arlie Hochschild, a sociologist, called the second shift, which means that a woman might work a full-time job and then come home to another full-time job of domestic and childcare work. As far as the workplace go, we see more and more women have entered the workplace, and men's participation has declined slightly, although more than half of men are in the workforce. We also see that when men and women become parents, that there is a gap in how their workplace might react, or the gap in the choices that they make. Mothers are more likely to choose to reduce their work hours, to quit their jobs, to take significant time off, and turn down a promotion after they have a child. Occupational segregation is a term that means that a certain demographic group dominates a certain industry. As far as gender goes, our workforce is still pretty segregated as far as work and gender. So we can see here on this graph that childcare and healthcare and service industry type jobs are more likely to be dominated by women, and men are more likely to dominate jobs like engineer, pilot, and physicians and lawyers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about global stratification. So not only is stratification present in the United States, when we look globally, we see stratification even more extreme. Approximately 1/4 of girls in the developing world do not attend school. So in poor families, if a family has both a boy and a girl, they might choose to send the boy to school because they cannot afford uniforms and transportation and books for both children. Women comprise more than 50% of the world's population, but they only own about 1% of the world's wealth. It's also important to note that 2/3 of the world's illiterate population are women. Each year, 12 million girls are married before the age of 18. That is 23 girls every minute. Young marriage often results in high fertility rates, and they're less likely to finish school. The UN estimates that around 5,000 women and girls are murdered each year in so-called honor killings by members of their family. So an example of an honor killing happened in Arizona, where a father ran his daughter over with a Jeep because he said that she was too westernized, wore makeup, wanted to support herself independently, and refused a green card marriage to a man needing a green card to stay in the United States. Another act that is quite controversial and condemned by most Westerners is called female genital mutilation, or FGM for short. FGM is estimated to have occurred in about 200 million girls and women around the world where this practice is concentrated. The practice usually is conducted by a female member of the family or a female friend, and it includes removing part or all of the girl's external genitalia. Oftentimes, this is practiced in a non-sterile setting with non-sterilized tools. It's, as you can imagine, quite painful. Usually the girls are as young as 7 to 12. And the reason why this practice is done is because she would be considered unmarriageable or unclean or impure if she was to grow up and not have this surgery done. And so it's considered to be a benefit for the girl and her family so she could get married someday. This practice is found typically in places like sub-Saharan Africa, but also is done even in places in the United States where communities from these ethnic regions still dominate and perpetuate the practice. The gender wage gap is a controversial topic, and it's the gap between what men and women are paid. There are a variety of reasons for the gender wage gap. So currently, most recent statistics is that women of all races makes approximately 82 cents to men of all races dollars. So if you break that down by race and compare white or Asian men to Black or Hispanic women, the wage gap is even wider. So there are certain reasons for the wage gap that sociologists explain. One is overt discrimination, experience gaps. So we talked about women may be more likely to take time out of the workforce after they have children. And so when they re-enter the workforce, they might not have as much experience as their male counterparts. Socialization and gender roles. So women are socialized to be sweet and thankful and not rock the boat, and so they may not negotiate for raises or ask for promotions. Occupational segregation. Typically women are concentrated in care work and low-paid service industry. Mothers will trade higher wages for flexibility. The motherhood penalty is when women are seen as less devoted, less competent, or passed over promotions compared to childless women and men. However, this is complemented by the fatherhood bump, where men are seen as more devoted now that he has a child and more committed to the job and wanting to achieve more. Women are also more likely to work in a part-time capacity the service industry or in the gig economy like ride sharing. The gig economy is very flexible and you can choose your own hours. However, the compensation is not guaranteed and there's often no benefits attached to it. So this graph here shows that the gender gap in pay is narrower for younger workers, and this probably reflects that people in the 25 to 34 age category may not have children yet. Probably the biggest social movement of our recent time is the Me Too movement, which kickstarted in October 2017 with allegations against Harvey Weinstein, who's a movie producer, and it spread virally as a hashtag on social media, an attempt to hold powerful people accountable for sexual assault and harassment, especially in the workplace. Over 250 powerful men have been accused of Me Too allegations in all sorts of industries, ranging from art to film to politics to education. 1 in 2 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced sexual harassment during their lifetime. Previously, it has been a touchy subject for a lot of men and women to bring up. Oftentimes they're not believed or taken seriously, and this movement has started to change things a little bit. As far as public perception goes, most Americans support the Me Too movement. So this poll surveyed about 1,000 Americans, and the people surveyed indicated that they felt that the movement has created a climate to hold men more accountable. However, more than 40% feel the movement has gone too far. So there is debate on what actually counts as a Me Too allegation. A comment, does it have to be physical? What all gets included? And also, is there any redemption for those who are accused? Are they able to reintegrate back into society if they apologize? And also due process. What happens when these men are investigated? Are they given due process and a legitimate investigation? All right, well, that concludes this video. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, and I hope this video has helped, and I'll see you on the next video on men and masculinity. Thank you.